Hey guys, Minion Pack Smelly, your brother, and today I want to talk about Bodyswap as Sacrifice. So, my long-standing tradition of putting together Uber one-shot builds for Gauntlet, knowing full well that I realistically won't get a character far enough to get to actually fight Ubers. The idea being I am not good enough mechanically to do those fights, so I just need to one-shot the Ubers if I want to have a realistic chance of actually killing one if I get far enough to do that. Now, I'm injured right now, so I'm not going to be able to play in the event, so we'll just assume that I would totally sweep the event with my build if I was able to play and they would start calling me butts underscore. So, let's just talk about that build. Bodyswap as Sacrifice. So Minion Pact is banned in this event, and I assume will stop existing going forward, at least in its current form. So at level 4, Minion Pact gives you 3.2% of the sacrifice minion's life added as physical damage. Bodyswap as Sacrifice has baked in 34% of the minion's life as base fire damage. With a couple levels, it gets up to 35% because you'll get plus minion gear to scale the minion life anyway. So this is around 11 times more than a level 4 Minion Pact base. And a realistic a little bit higher than that because this costs a support gem where this is just baked into Bodyswap. Now, why is Bodyswap not super used? Well, Bodyswap's pretty clunky. You have to blow up a minion, the AoE explosion is not very big, and it actually has a huge damage penalty with ailments, which is how you would fix the clear of something like that. So you're only getting 17.5% of your minion's life if you're doing that. So realistically, I don't know how to use it outside of just like one-shotting like really hard content, which I think it's really, really well suited to do. But I am probably going to still mess with it a little bit in future, like in the next league, just because I want to see if it's good enough, like if you can get it to feel good enough, because the damage just seems so absurd if Minion Pact is going away. Anyways, point is, that's how I'm able to two-shot Ubers with just a 2-link. Bodyswap Sacrifice and Conk Effect, because I'm using the Unholy Aberration Spectre right here. He has, as far as I know, around 100k life. It's the Scorpion from Unholy Trinity fight or Carcass map. And with that, I'm using minion life and power scale levels, stacking a bunch of minion life from like cluster jewels and all that stuff, yada yada, taking minion life on the tree, and it gets up to about 2 million. So that means my base damage is 700k fire damage, which is just so absurd. It's just such a silly, silly amount. And that is before we're like stacking all these other more multipliers, right? I'm using pretty generic, boring stuff that I typically do on Uber one-shotter builds, which is Pyroclast Mines of Sabotage, Minefield, Arrogance, and then Stormblast Mine. So I throw it on Pyroclast to get the exposure from that. Then I click Stormblast twice to get 10 mines like that out there, which each one implies 4% increased damage taken enemies near it, which gets scaled by Aura Effect, which gets scaled off Arrogance, and then this Aura Mastery and all that stuff. And just generic Aura Effect, that's why these nodes are good. But pretty typical setup for that to get a ton of damage out of that. And apparently, and I assume this is a bug, but 3.8 has a video on it. If you guys are following him, you definitely should. He has like really weird content, which is I really like. But anyways, he makes it seem like Mastermind Discord is this minus 25 is getting inherited on Pyroclast Mine, so it's getting minus 50 fire res total. I might have to rewatch this video to see if that's working, but I assume that's a bug. But point is, it's tons and tons of minus fire res. So insanely strong with Mastermind Discord on something like this where you try to one-shot something. Also getting 30% more damage out of Convergence because when I hit a mob, that's within 4 seconds, they'll definitely die. So it doesn't matter, this is 30% more damage, tons of damage out of this. 35% increased damage taken from enemies from my shocks here, which is not as strong as it sounds because I'm already getting a ton of increased damage taken from Stormblast Mines, but that's all additive. And then just a little nice shield from Bastion and Elements. Similar to that, it's one of the reasons I have this flask set up. They last about 8 seconds total. So I have my flask here, and then when I click my focus, it pops all my stuff, like my Molten Shell and all my curses. So I get about a 5,000 Molten Shell on top of my 2,500 Aegis. And the reason I have that is just because I have like a decent ES pool on top of that. So I have a like 23 max Fizz hit and a pretty decent high Ellie hit. I don't need, this character is not supposed to be tanky for a long period of time. It needs to be tanky enough to not die to the first like 5 seconds of an Uber fight where I try to one-shot them, right? So I just need to be tanky just for a moment. That's why I get all my armor from this. Like I have like 1,000 base armor for my gear, but I get it all from flasks, stacking increase effect because it doesn't matter. I only need 1 charges, all this stuff, but it's basically a lot of ways how you would set up an Uber like this, or like an Uber killer like this. You just enkindle him. You don't need Mage Blood because the boss will die by the time these flasks stop working anyway. So that's basically it. All the generic stuff around how this build is set up. But the weirder stuff, and I saw a really cool video on Reddit, which I'll link to, of someone one-shotting Ubers using an AG with a ton of life alongside Bodyswap of Sacrifice. Was it? Oh yeah, it was just Mercenaries League. That was a league where AG, an Animate Guardian, comes back. He doesn't get his gear blown up. He doesn't die permanently. He comes back. You can only use him once an instance if he dies. But if you summon an Animate Guardian, you blow him up, it kills the Uber. It doesn't matter if he can't come back for the rest of that encounter. The boss is dead. So I thought it was pretty cool. And he was using this mercenary mod. Your travel skills critically strike once every 3 uses. So to do that, basically, you animation cancel body swap twice. Like you click and then you right click it, left click to move, which will cancel it, and then do that twice. And then on your third one, it'll actually get that guaranteed critical strike. Now I use summon skeletons instead, which just summons 2 skeletons, blow both those up, because my mechanics are not the best, and sometimes I mess it up and blow up a scorpion when I don't mean to, and that's just kind of annoying. Yeah, I mean, granted I have 4 of them, but in multi-phase boss, it's like pretty bad to actually blow them up because you need, each one of those is like, you only have like basically 4 skill uses before you have to log out and log back in to get your specters back. So, anyways, but if you're better, you can just like, lose that as a gem. But basically we're doing that, which gives us guaranteed crits for our one-shotting. And you basically take advantage of all the things you would on like a diamond tri belt, where you have guaranteed crits, so you get to use Maryland's fallacy with no downside, just tons and tons of crit damage, and then crit multi jewels, because you don't need crit chance, so you just stack multi as much as you can. Like I have 700 crit multi or so on my Bodyswap Sacrifice, and I have no crit chance. So just tons and tons of damage out of that, tons of damage out of the mine setup. Elementalist is all damage, and then 700k base damage, and you can see how I'm two-shotting Ubers in this kind of setup. Now, ascendancy-wise, I'm not really convinced on Elementalist, but I really couldn't find anything that was so much better. Like Necromancer basically gives you nothing. She gives you 20% more minion life as one of her nodes, which is 20% more base damage on your Bodyswap Sacrifice, which is quite good, and her travel nodes are increased life. But then there's like nothing else in the Ascendancy that I want at all, so that's pretty rough. Assassin has 25% more damage against uniques, 100 crit multi against full life enemies, which they always will be, and that's pretty much it. And then Sabo gives you a bunch of mine aura effect, which is like 50% more damage with this kind of setup because it scales these auras quite well. But then he has no other node to take, because he has that node where it's like 30% chance to deal 50% more damage with area skills, which is quite good. But you don't want to do chance to deal double damage, chance to deal more damage kind of stuff on like an Uber one-shotting character, because even though in PoB it'll say like on average that's 30% more damage, but 70% of the time that's not going to happen, and you're not going to one-shot the boss, and your build's not going to function. You need guaranteed damage, right, on a build like this. Like you don't want variance at all. You want to be as consistent as possible. So every time you go in there, they die. Especially on something like this, if you're doing like a hardcore setup, because you'll just you don't kill them, they will kill you. I think that's pretty much it for like how I have this set up. There's nothing like super interesting. I have pretty fair gear, just in my mind. Like I didn't try to go too overboard because I wanted to make it realistic to like what you could actually acquire in a 7-day SSF race. So I have just like +1 minion on my helmet, because realistically +2 minions doesn't exist. It's the weighting's like 25. Good luck actually ever seeing that. Just +1 minion here with like decent ES rolls and minion life. Just rare belt, rare gear here. Nothing crazy. Not obviously having this fracture. This is just what existed on trade that I just bought. Probably wouldn't get this on Paladin boots. You might actually have to merge it with the Recombinator, which would be really unideal if you can't get an armor in ES space, because I want to take advantage of this node. This is just a really easy way to get a ton of increased ES from your chest if you don't have a ton of increased ES elsewhere, which we don't have because I want to stack damage as much as I can. So this is just a convenient way to get a lot of ES for minimal investment. So these are armor ES, armor ES, armor ES, and then just pure ES here. So we get a double up out of that. And then I'm trying to think of anything else that I have that's super important. Not really. Trigger helmet. I just have double curse here. You could use Anathema and do a third curse, but there isn't really a good third curse for you, because punishment, which would be really good for you, you're one-shotting them, so they'll never be low life. They're full life and then 0 life, so it just won't actually give you any damage. The only other one would be Assassin's Mark, which is like around 10% more damage, pretty decent, but still not great. And Doerger's damage is extremely common, and this is a div card to make it easy to get. The reason I'm using Vortex here is because my supports on this actually suck. You run out of supports really quickly on Minion Pact. You can't use Spellica, you can't use Unleash, you can't use any of those. Crit damage, not a great support because we already have so much crit multi, so it's like 20% more damage. So Cruelty, 24% more damage. LE Focus, like 34% more damage. And then it's like pretty much scratching the bottom of the barrel. So that's why Conk Effect's your absolute best. So I'm using Hypothermia just because, so I can have another decent support link, so I don't have to use like one of these more clunky ones. So I use Vortex because it guarantees a chilled ground doesn't need to deal a certain amount of damage. It's Creeping Frost will be the same, but anything, I can't use Winter type ranks, it needs to hit, because if it hits, I can get a little bit of flat fire from anything, which I have just here. Add fire damage, doesn't matter how much fire damage you have, just enough to ignite, so that it ignites and triggers combustion, which also triggers my increased fire damage mastery. But Vortex, just so I guarantee chill, so I can use Hypothermia. Similarly, you could do something like, instead of Vortex, you could do Ball Lightning of Static here, and then Chance to Poison, and use Herald of Vigoni. and you could get vile toxins on this because that's a 40% more damage support. It's quite good. But then you lose combustion and guarantee chill and all that stuff. So it's kind of tough to fit everything in. But yeah, the other supports are just not ideal. Like Intensify, pretty good. Like Intensify is great. It's just you're only going to click it once. So you're not going to have these stacks unless you have it was like Nadir mode or Apex mode. I can't remember which one you'd actually want. Inspiration, I don't even click the skill 5 times, and I really can't. I can only click it like 3 times. So you could do it. It would just be really clunky to set up to get your actual charges. You'd have to have like inspiration support supporting something else like Frostblink or something. Life Tap, similarly, it lasts for a duration. On something like this where the timing is like really important, it's really annoying having these things that last for a set amount of time, because if it runs out, they stop supporting you, where you only click it like 1 time. So these are, while these are good, they're just kind of annoying like that. So you really run into a problem of like not a lot of good supports. Ideally, you would use something like Replica Stampede, because they say Socketed Travel Skills do 80% more damage, but we really need this Critical Strike Mercenary mod on boots. And then you could maybe craft like a Socketed Gems, like a 6 or 7 link Socketed Helmet for Bodyswap. But the problem is you really want +1 to minion gems there, so it's like you kind of lose there as well. So it's kind of tough. And then your glove slot's totally free, but the glove Socketed supports are just terrible. They're all like projectile based or trap and mine based. You can get multi and then like an essence mod, but it's like that's not even good either. So it's kind of tough. I'm not really sure exactly how to set this up. This feels wrong, but it's like I really don't know where else to put it. Alternatively, initially I was using you would just roll not terrible armor ES gloves and then just corrupt them randomly until you get +2 minion gems. I think it is either +2 minion gems or +1 gems is 90, or it's what is it? If the Vol Orb gives you an implicit, it's 10% chance to actually get. So it wouldn't take that long with like 30-ish Vol Orbs. You would eventually get there. You just take not terrible gloves and corrupt them. Eventually you get there. But this ended up being actually a little bit more damage. So just using a alt spammed for T1 crit multi, it's like 50 alts with a low level Thorn Raper, and you do that, and then you do cannot roll attack mods, Exalt Slam. You always get Socketed Gems, the only mod you could possibly hit, and then from there you just multi mod on +2 to Socketed support gems, and then minions have increased life, increased damage. Ideally, I would have slammed on like a suffix that's useful for us, like Strength or Dexterity. Those are the only 2 options, but yeah, or like Critical Strike where uniques are nearby, but you can't have another crafted mod, so unless you get the enchant from Heist or whatever. But yeah, funny enough, because this like kind of wand is like actually a little bit worse. Same basic thing where it's just plus minion gems, multi, and then multi-modded on with the pretty much the same odds, just more multi, and then minion life, minion dam. But because this ends up being 1 more level on this, and multi is a little bit better than increased damage, we already have like 700% increased damage. This actually ends up being a little bit more damage, and you don't have to throw away your glove slot, so you get your Eldritch Implicits. Although the Eldritch Implicits are not fantastic here, but you could use uniques like the ones that give enemies take increased damage for each Wither stack on them are quite good. There's some other uniques you could use here as well, but basically you don't have to randomly corrupt things to hope to get something playable. Ideally, you would have +2 minion gems, +1 gems. That would be the nut, but unless you take those to Vault Temple, you're not going to realistically see those. And I think at a 7-day event, you're certainly not going to see those. Okay, I think that is everything. I think I mentioned this already, but just to make it super clear, this gear could be a lot better, and there's probably a better way to do this entirely, but this is based on just what I think I could realistically achieve in like a 7-day gauntlet. Like, for example, I don't even have a Timeless Jewel. Like, I would love to farm up an Elegant Hubris alongside Caspiro, which is Supreme Ostentation, ideally in like Spotlight right here, which I would click, and then it would say I don't need attribute requirements anymore, which is insane because I actually spend so much on fixing my attributes. Like, I need around 130 dex for my sword plus hypothermia, and then like 155 for determination, even higher if I get a 21 determination, and then like 300 for the Twilight Regalia. So I have strength here, dex here, int here, dex here, int here, dex and strength here, int here. Like, I have attributes on like everything. And I even had to take some of these nodes initially. So that would save so much suffix pressure and gearing pressure. Realistically, on a build like this, you don't need a lot of resistances because you can use a flask with additional elemental resistances or even a bismuth, just because like the flasks here are like not insane for us anyway. But just because even if it only lasts like 7 or 8 seconds, that doesn't matter if your resistance are capped without the flask, because the boss should be dead within that time for the flask actually wearing off. It's a little sketchy on fights like Shaper where you need to actually like run through the zone, but for like fights you get a 1-shot, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, that would save a ton of suffix pressure and just gearing pressure in general. And on top of that, I could get like maybe 160% minion life, maybe 240 if I'm really lucky. Like, if this node turned to 80% minion life and then like one over here I could anoint, probably ends up being like 20 to 25% more damage, which is a shit ton. Obviously you get like a level 4 in power, that's a lot more damage as well. I think 3 is realistic, 4 is probably not. +2 gloves or +1 gloves versus +3. +3 gloves, it's just like you have to run a bunch of alvas, and that would just take forever. And God, the waiting on getting both of those is just crazy. I think that, and then like a plus 2 wand that you would like merge +1 minion gems plus all skill gems and just recombinate those together. Waiting on the +1 all gems is really, really brutal, so that would also take forever. +2 helmet, waiting way too bad, like I mentioned already. It's like 25, so good luck actually seeing it. You technically use a Wraithlord, which you farm off Katarina. That boss is like super, like turbo cancer, but she is kind of squishy, so if you're like good at the mechanics of it, you probably do it, but I don't know how you would actually fix the socket pressure, because like I have this focus to save buttons and sockets, and I'm already like pretty much like I'm like out of everything really. Like you could lower your molten shell duration, but that's just like really comfy and like in the bosses. Like if you time it better, you don't need like all the duration stuff, I guess. But I really like it, so I don't get one shot and die. But yeah, if you do that, you get like ES Abyssal Jewels with minions have increased life suffixes. You probably end it with quite a bit more damage if you do that. But again, sockets, I'm not really exactly sure how you do that. You probably lose a little bit of ES as opposed to having it like here. So you lose the ES mastery for like you wouldn't take it with this. It's like only 100 ES with quality. I think that's most of like the further upgrades I make outside of like possibly doing this an entirely different way. I do want to quickly touch on which bosses were easy. So it's basically Uber Incarnation of Dread, Fear, Neglect, Eater, Exarch. You can all just one shot. These have way more life than Eater and Exarch. I think like I don't know, like maybe like 40% more life. So if you're one-shotting these guys, you're definitely one-shotting Eater and Exarch. Exarch, Eater, you have to be a little careful with because I've actually ripped a character to killing him and then dying to his tentacles after he died. So you might like honestly hit him and then log or just like something like that. Cause it's pretty sketchy. The tentacles deal a lot of damage. Like we have a pretty big fizz hit, but yeah, if you hit 2 of them back to back, I don't know, he might actually kill you. So it's like something to be careful about. Venarius has basically no life. I do think you probably want to use marionettes for it because it's just multi-phase and then there's ads and stuff. But he has like 20 million life, which is basically nothing. Like these guys have like over 100 million. Like some of these have over 100 million. So this just like each phase of this just like actually free. So basically everything up to here is free, and then the rest of it's kind of tricky. So like Shaper was really sketchy when I was doing him. Oh, I guess I should mention on these guys have so much life. Sometimes I would one shot and then knock them down to like 15 or 20% life, which sounds bad, but you just press body swap twice. So I just like literally just hold it down on top of them just in case that happens, because your second, even though your second body swap is going to deal like an eighth of the damage, it's still enough to finish them off, especially with the culling from fallacy. So should be pretty free or whatever. But yeah, the rest of it though, I don't actually know exactly how you do. Like Cyrus, I think you could probably do just mechanically if like you have the corrupted blood. It's like he teleports, like, so it's just kind of rough. You only have to one shot him 3 times, but it's like it's really rough because you have to like not get killed by his die beam while trying to do that and then dodge his storm. But if you can do that, it's like it's really technically just 3 hits. So in between each phase, it's really easy to set up the like double animation cancel so it crits. So you just like have to play tight in that part, which I'm sure good players could do. But the ones that are like actually tough, like Maven, I assume you have to go marionettes just because there's so many phases. It just feels a little sketchy having to body swap into the brain because of the degens. Like you might just die doing that. So I don't know. And then the brain has like 100 million life, which is not enough for marionettes to one shot on a setup like this without better gear. So you probably have to do it like 2 or 3 times, which the fight's not, or that part of the fight is like kind of not that dangerous. So it's probably fine, but I don't know, it's kind of rough. Just in general, like it just kind of sketches me out. I'm bad at this fight, so it's probably not as bad as it sounds to me. And then Shaper, he felt really sketchy. Basically, it was really high RNG. Like if you try to go in with Scorpions, which I don't think you should, you probably should also do this one on Marionettes, because you would get some really bad RNG. Like I would get Malachi, where he has 3 heart phases and then 3 phases himself. That's 6 things I have to kill. I have to kill 6 things. I only have 4 specters. I literally didn't have enough specters to kill him. I had to log out just to get more specters to finish that fight. And then I still had 3 other bosses before I even got to Shaper. So it's like, depending on your RNG there, it's like pretty bad. So if you use marionettes, it's like kind of solves that issue. Like it might honestly be as stupid as just like have 1 marionette and then 3 of your actual specters, so that when you do the like first phase, you don't like have to like eat multiple portals, because it's like you only have 3 attempts on Ubers and Gauntlet. So I don't know, but anyways, he only has 70 million life. Marionettes I don't think are enough to, they should be enough to, I believe, one shot him in his first 2 phases, but not his last one. So you might have to do like a triple hit on that, which is probably a little sketchy. But the first 2 phases should be relatively easy as long as you can get between the zones. It's like you have to do a minor respec to get a Quicksilver Flask and then like phasing and just stuff like that, so you can actually get to the zones easily and be able to kill stuff, which is why I also like marionettes, because if you can't kill stuff, you can just get gang blocked there and actually still die. And you have to kill the like that ghosty thing before you fight him, like that black anomaly looking thing. So it's like you eat a ton of specters if you go. You can't really do aberrations on Shaper. You kind of need to have marionettes, even though the damage is quite a bit less. Uber Elder, you technically have to kill like 8 things, so you could use marionettes. The problem is the ad phase, which I don't know how you deal with if you don't use marionettes. So you might just have to use like Ignite Prolif or something on your Unholy Aberrations, which probably actually work. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure on that one because it's like the ad phase might check you if you don't use marionettes, but they don't have that much life in total, so marionettes are probably good enough. Actually, this fight's probably fine. You just probably use marionettes because it's like, even though they have like around like I think it's like 60 or 70 million, you only have to do it in like 20% chunks, which marionettes could definitely do. And then Cyrus is more just like, I don't know, you only have to kill him 3 times, but that just feels really sketchy to me in general. I'm terrible at Cyrus and Maven, so they always just seem way harder than they probably actually are. But between the phases, you have enough to do 2 minion packs so that you always crit when you heal him. So like you should be able to one-shot him 3 separate times. It's just a matter of like he flickers around, so it's like if you blow your load and miss, you're just kind of fucked because you have to get back to the arena. I don't know. Cyrus is really hard, but I guess you have the mechanics down, you could probably do it. Now I don't know if this would come up, but it's the last thing I wanted to mention with Bodyswap. So you can't use Pellicle or Unleash like I was saying, and then your last supports generally on like this kind of setup are like 20% more or even worse, which is pretty terrible. One thing that you could do that's weird if you wanted to do an even more defensive setup on this and your mechanics were a little bit better, you could technically just use 2 body swaps to sacrifice. And before you fight a boss, you could animation cancel one twice and then animation cancel the other twice as well, or just like pop skeletons with pop 2 skeletons one, pop 2 skeletons the other. And then when you go to fight the boss, this one will crit and then the second one will crit as well. So you basically would get like 70% or like 67% more damage by doing that as opposed to losing a 20% more support. So it would let you maybe make your character a little more defensive or get a little more damage with worse gear or something. And that's probably dumb and like a lot harder to set up on like multi-phased fights, but it's just something to keep in mind, as silly as it sounds. All right, that's got to be enough. I can't even talk forever. All right, poops in, butts out.